Hello, I'm Liz, one of Derry's reference librarians, and welcome back to another episode of Misinformation Busters. Once a week, we tackle a rumor or false/misunderstood information, and we try to separate fact from fiction. This week, we're talking about one of the most famous diaries of all time, the supposed true life diary of a girl on drugs. Go ask Alice. So, what's the story? If you were a teen anytime between the 1970s and now, you have likely heard of Go Ask Alice. The book, which was published in 1971 with the author simply listed as Anonymous, was presented as the real-life diary of an unnamed teen girl who had normal teen problems and then tried drugs and fell into a life of drug use and eventually death. It's been a YA staple for almost 50 years, and it still has its fans and its detractors. It spent years as challenge books, with adults citing it as inappropriate or as propaganda. And it also has those who feel that the book is a good warning or a teaching tool against the dangers of drug use. But there's still a big question. Who was Alice? And even bigger, did she even exist? And if she did, how did someone get their hands on her diary? So, what are the facts? Most signs point to Alice not being real. The big tell is when you open up this book to the copyright page, you see the "this is a work of fiction" disclaimer. So much for it being a real diary. But now comes the question, who wrote these then? Well, despite the author being anonymous, there is a person who holds the copyright, and that is Beatrice Sparks. Beatrice Sparks was born in 1917 and spent much of her adult life as a therapist and a youth counselor. She would actually tour the country talking about the dangers of drugs and other risky behaviors. And when Go Ask Alice became a big hit, she was all too willing to claim her claim to fame. But she did not present herself as the writer of these books. Rather, she said that she edited these diaries. There's an article in the 1979 issue of School Library Journal in which writer Aline Pace Nielsen tours Sparks' home and interviews her. And in this interview, Sparks claims that Alice was a real girl who saw her speak on tour and actually reached out to her. And Sparks also said that the family felt that she could help this girl through a really bad time. And when this girl died, her mother called Sparks saying she left behind a diary and that it might make a good book. If this is all true, this raises some questions like, what about Dr. Patient confidentiality? Sparks had that covered, saying that she was just a friend of this girl rather than a therapist. And when asked if the family received royalties, Sparks just said no. I mean, it is possible that this is true, and if it is, man, there are some bad implications about how Sparks operates with troubled teens. But over time, it mainly just proved to be a cover story. Because over the years, she edited other books like Jay's Journal, Annie's Baby, It Happened to Nancy, all supposedly anonymous diaries of troubled teens and all dealing with hot topics like suicide, AIDS, teen pregnancy, and they were all written in a similar way and rarely in the way that teens talk. In the end, all evidence points to Sparks being the writer of these books, and she probably had help with ghostwriters, especially as she got older. These books are pretty much just intended to be warnings, stuff to scare kids away from risky behavior and give them moral messages. And while they aren't as common now, they were big back in the day as a way to introduce hard topics to teens. And while it's not wrong to present cautionary tales to teens, it is a bit dishonest, in fact very dishonest, to present a fabrication as a true story. Alice, Annie, and Jay likely never existed. But still, I would consider a falsely advertised true story to be better than a therapist publishing a dead teen's diary, exploiting said death, and then not giving her family any share of royalties. Thank you for watching, and as always, look for the sources in the comments. And if you want to do some research, you can use our EBSCO databases available through the library's website. They definitely helped me out this time around, and I'll see you next week.